In this video, I want to cover a different aspect of Docker. In this case, the security aspect. So when you're going ahead and designing a Docker container, one of the things that you need to think about is how it's going to run in the future. Now, let's take for example, if you run a Docker container that has something very simple like a username and password, or at least a password that needs to be specified because your container is something like MySQL or MS SQL, or just a simple website that needs a default admin password, storing that in the command line as a variable is kind of dangerous, as it becomes known to anyone who's standing behind you, along with potentially any other inputs. So what we want to do is hide that from prying eyes. Now that can be done using Docker secrets. Now we're going to use the example of trying to create a Docker secrets, but first of all, in order to use Docker secrets, you need to have Swarm up and running. Now keep in mind, from what we discovered in earlier videos, a Swarm can be a single member. So if we go ahead and create the Swarm on our machine, and from that point of view we then have a development machine, even though it's a single machine, that can run all of those commands. So in this case, we're going to create the Swarm, and then we're going to store our secrets within it. In this case, the password to our admin instance. So instead of having a command line variable where we say, okay, this is the password, we're able to store it somewhere else. So as you can see, we've already created a secret. Now we're going to just check the secret to see that it exists. So you can see we have our secret and we're ready to go ahead and start using it. Now, in order to use our secret, we're going to need to use Docker Compose. So we're going to create a compose file in order to use these passwords as part of that. Now, Compose in general is a great idea, particularly if you're going to start up any kind of service, and I highly recommend that you design all these rights. Now, the reason you would want to use a password file in particular in terms of secrets is in case you were using something like a repository, so any kind of GitLab or GitHub or anything else where someone else can read your Docker Compose file. You don't want the password to be in clear text. So in this case, this password happens to be stored in a secret, and that secret is then only in the environment or the admin's head. And since it can be rotated, it can become an unknown secret to anyone except for whoever last rotated it, keeping it as secure as possible. And if you want to randomize it, aka create a random text string, then it is also completely stored within the environment and nowhere else. So having fired up our new secret related instance, we can prove that we can connect to it and that the service is running. And just to absolutely make sure that this is the service and I'm not cheating here, I'm going to remove it, and then I'm going to go ahead and prove that it's removed, and then try to reconnect again. So the password in this case was never anywhere other than when I initially created it as a secret, and I have the ability to update that secret anytime I wanted. And when I do that, it immediately will mean that every time I spin up an instance, it will use that password, which prevents the possibility of that password ever being written down anywhere else other than the command line. And if it's not a non-human interactive one, let's say as an example, I have a web server talking to a DB where the password isn't needed to be known by anyone other than the system, it's a very good way of securing it. So developing in this way, in terms of keeping the secrets within the file, is bad, but keeping the secret, in this case within the configuration, is a very good and secure way. Since the entire information remains technically unknown to anyone other than the person who entered it, this is the best security model so far. Now, if you liked this video, give us a thumbs up. If you didn't, give us a thumbs down, and as always, subscribe for more content.